There's something nobody really talks about in spirituality. Now, awakening isn't always liberating. Sometimes it arrives too early. Not because someone is weak, and not because they're doing it wrong, but because insight can outpace integration. When awareness opens faster than the nervous system can stabilise, the mind doesn't expand, it fractures. Meaning floods in, but the body has nowhere to put it. Now this isn't failure, it's timing. And that matters because human development has a structure. And some people tried to warn us about that long before we were ready to listen. One of them was Rudolf Steiner. Now, Steiner wasn't selling spirituality. He wasn't asking people to escape reality. He was trying to describe how awareness actually unfolds. How perception, psychology, and responsibility are meant to grow together. Now, he warned us about premature awakening. About opening perception without grounding, about confusing intensity with truth. And most of that work didn't land. Not because it was wrong, but because the culture wasn't ready to listen. There was no trauma language, no nervous system understanding, and no framework to explain why insight alone doesn't stabilize a human being. So what sounded mystical then is now being rediscovered through psychology, neuroscience, and lived experience. Now, I'm not repeating Steiner, I'm simply translating him. Because the real question isn't what opens, it's what holds it. Awareness without grounding doesn't mature, it destabilizes. Because when the body isn't included, awakening stays abstract. And abstractation doesn't regulate emotions. It doesn't heal relationships. And it doesn't help you live. Grounding isn't the opposite of spirituality. It's the container that allows it to last. If insight disconnects from your body, your responsibilities, or the other people around you, that's not transcendence. That's imbalance. And here's another misunderstanding that comes in. Thinking isn't the enemy. The problem isn't thought. It's being unaware that you're thinking. Most people aren't thinking, they're being thought. Awareness of thought changes everything. You stop identifying with every mental movement and you start seeing thinking rather than drowning in it. This is where clarity begins. Not in silence, but in conscious thought. Yet, even clarity isn't enough because integration doesn't live in the mind alone. It lives in the body. The nervous system remembers. Patterns remember. The body remembers what the mind has already understood. That's why insight alone doesn't heal. You can understand something perfectly and still feel stuck. Awakening that ignores the body becomes conceptual, and concepts don't release stored tension. Integration happens when awareness meets sensation, not when it bypasses it. And when that integration happens, something shifts. The question stops being, how awakened am I, and becomes something far more grounded. What does my presence do to the moment I'm in? This is moral imagination, not morality as rules, but responsibility as awareness in action. The ability to sense the impact of your inner state before you act. to respond instead of react, to choose instead of repeat. This is what comes after awakening, after the peak, after the story. And if this resonates, it's not because of who said it. It's because your system already knows it. So here's the question I'll leave with you. If awareness isn't meant to pull you out of life, but to change the way you meet it, what might shift if you paid attention not to what you know, but to what your presence is doing right now? So take that into today and let's move forward together.